Welcome to this Killik Explains finance video. This week, a topical one, the B word is in there, lessons for investors from the Brexit Big short. What was it? Going to go back in time a little bit, and why does it matter? For anyone who's a little bit tired of the whole how's this going to work debate, this is important. This affects the way that markets work potentially and puts a little bit of emphasis on the regulator in terms of getting a grip on this type of stuff. So here we go. The background is what? Well, as we all know, the 2016 referendum result came in to leave, and essentially that surprised quite a few people. It certainly surprised the currency markets. The pound lost 8%, a record in a single session as a result. So the pound crumbled. Now, a few large hedge funds made profits, and the question is how? All right, and there are two layers to the how. One's the mechanics. Mechanically, how do you make money when something falls? And then the second thing is, how do you know you're going to make money when something falls? Now, the argument goes, markets are completely level playing fields. You can win, you can lose from placing a down bet. But a group of journalists at Bloomberg think that actually the playing field wasn't as level as you might think. Now, the basic mechanism is what? So this is the first how. So the method is called short selling. I cover that in more detail in other videos. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but suffice it to say, there are ways place large bets on things falling. As a conventional investor, you tend to think the way to make money is to buy low and sell higher, but trust me, there are ways to do it the other way around, okay? Using derivatives, using short selling as it's called. So let's assume these big players, these hedge funds, were able to place large bets on sterling falling. In other words, they'd make money if that proved to be correct. Now, no one has the benefit of foresight. You don't know what's going to happen, but let's say there is a way you can achieve that. And these are geared. In other words, every pound, if you like, you place as a bet on sterling falling, the effect is magnified. So you make a lot more than £1 profit. Okay? Now, there is a but. Naturally, there's a but. In other words, this is not a free lunch. Betting on falling prices is both unpopular sometimes, seen as negative, and it's pretty risky. Get it wrong, you can bust your fund, because basically these are geared bets, they're magnified, and get the direction of travel wrong, had the pound risen sharply, you can be wiped out with bets of this kind of magnitude. So Remain was officially tipped to win the vote. Now that's worth remembering, even though obviously the entire negotiation that Theresa May's undertaken since has been about leaving. It's worth remembering that Remain was tipped to win, but a lot of people thought that would be the case. Short sellers therefore needed an edge. In other words, to bet against the crowd, you've got to be fairly confident or nuts. And these people were probably the former rather than the latter. So what will that edge be? And it's this: exit polls. In other words, how do you gauge what's going to happen on the night, and how do you bet confidently against the consensus opinion? Well, large polling agencies were retained by the hedge funds. Now, this is the accusation is probably the wrong word. I mean, it's fact that these large polling agencies of a size that normally would be associated with making some sort of public prediction, on the night they were saying it's too difficult to call, we're not prepared necessarily to say which way we think the referendum result's going to go. So rather than actually saying we're not going to attempt it at all, what it seems was happening was they were basically on the payroll of certain hedge funds who were interested in that information. So publicly, these two or three big agencies were normally associated with giving predictions on things like referendum results were strangely quiet. Behind the scenes is the accusation they were being paid to do exactly that. And they had evidence that Leave would win early in the evening. Now, they couldn't possibly have known definitively, and this is almost a defence, if you like, but based on incredibly sophisticated data that they were able to practice on from things like talent competitions on national TV, for example, where they were asked to try and predict winners and losers based on a sample of people, extrapolate that to a wider population, using some pretty cutting-edge, sophisticated statistical techniques, picking the right sample of people to ask, if you like. They had reasonably good evidence, insofar as anyone ever does, that Leave would win early in the evening. And that was important, because that was evidence they had that not necessarily everyone else like you and I had access to. Now, double whammy. What's the double whammy? So how do you make hundreds of millions, vast amounts of money out of a risky bet on the back of that sort of information? Well, basically, If you know, if you can see the pound rising as people think it's going to go remain, so that basically underpinned the pound sending it up, you know that at some point there will be a tipping point, or you're pretty damn confident, then basically the double whammy is you can make money as the pound rises, predict where that tipping point is going to come, and then short it and make huge profits as the result, tilted to leave. Okay? Now, there is still some risk here. You don't know that your population is going to guarantee the outcome, but they were reasonably confident. And they certainly had a good history prior to this of getting that kind of projection and prediction reasonably right. Why does this matter? Because you might be thinking, well, good luck to them. They hired some guys from polling agencies, they made some bets that were quite risky, those bets came off. Good for them. Well, there is, and there's a group of Bloomberg journalists looking at this at the moment, there is an angle on this which does actually matter. The first one is this. I mean, is it illegal? This is for regulators. Probably not. I mean, well, put it this way. In my opinion, it doesn't look like insider dealing. There's no insider here, even though the information is public, price sensitive and something the public would be interested in. It could fall under what's called the Market Abuse Directive. So you might say market abuse is just a way of saying, well, if it's not illegal, is it just a little bit unfair? All right. Would it have been better if this information had been made publicly available rather than just made available to a few small people in the market? Small number of people. The FCA is still deciding. I wouldn't like to tip them one way or the other. The FCA have suddenly caught up with the issue here and are taking a look at what this is categorised as. Is it fine, good luck to them? Is it illegal? Is it unfair and something like market abuse? Watch that space. But it also matters, it has a wider implication for you and I, investors, and that is this. Mainstream information outlets are being challenged and undermined. This was information that was not available one way or another to mainstream outlets, and that's increasingly common. A lot of the sources that I use are what we call off-piece. They're blog sites, and I can very happily supply you with a list. They're not necessarily quoted in the mainstream. In fact, mainstream media are so worried about it, they're actually buying up some of the better commentators from the blogosphere space. So a lot of activity is taking place away from the main media traditional outlets. And it's a tough area for regulators to police. Now, I'm not a regulator, but it's an example of an area combines social media and, let's say, private exit polling, and you've got a whole space, a dark pool, if you like, of information, if I can borrow that phrase, where regulators need to think carefully about how they police it. Find out more, try a video clip, Bloomberg's How Hedge Funds Gain Brexit to Make Millions, and if you'd like to ping me any questions, editor@killik.com. So for example, if you want to know more about short selling, the actual mechanics of it, or foreign currency, or how to place bets on the pound going up or down, I do have videos on that. Killik.com/learn, and then the currency section is a good starting point, or ping me here.